Well, good afternoon, everybody. I've cleared the waiting room and I'll continue to let folks in. But thank you for joining us today at FAR's Building a Bright Future. I'm very thankful that you are here and did not blow off our meeting, speakers and attendees, for the gorgeous, nearly 80-degree day we are enjoying outside. Hopefully y'all can get out there after this. But I'm really excited for this meeting today. We have so much, obviously, going on in the real estate market right now, and supply is obviously our largest and most significant challenge in the market. And building for tomorrow is a big concern, I know, of a lot of our members and a lot of the folks that you are working with who are potentially not finding anything on the market or losing offer after offer. So I would love to just start by, we're going to go around and introduce our speakers. I did want to recognize Brad Johnson. He is the chair of the Public Policy Committee. And this was his idea to get everybody together to talk about building in our region. So we do want this to be informal and interactive. So please, as you have questions for our speakers, feel free to pop them in the chat. I will make sure that I monitor that and ask those. I don't think we need to wait to hold questions till the end, since we have several folks from the jurisdictions here. I think as those questions come up, let's make sure we ask them, and we'll get your questions answered and get some great information. So I will start first by asking the folks from Caroline County, Kevin, to introduce himself.
Yeah, my name is Kevin Whiteman. I'm the building official in Caroline, and I've been here since 2004.
All right, great. Next, I'll move on to the city of Fredericksburg. I saw Marnie and Chuck.
There we go. All right.
Well, I'm Marnie. I'm the development administrator with the city of Fredericksburg.
Sorry, the mute buttons were reversed. I'm Chuck Johnson, planning and building director. Marnie Sherman, development administrator, just introduced herself, and John Schaefer, who's also on the screen, is the building official.
Great, thanks. Nice to have you all. I saw Lewis from King George.
Yes, I'm Louis Tancati, senior planner for King George County.
And I'll just give a shout out to see if we've got anybody from Stafford. I know Jeff, I didn't see Jeff. Oh, there you are. I see you now. Okay, go ahead.
Jeff Harvey with planning and zoning. And also I believe Carrie Jamison, our building official, is here.
Yep, I'm here.
Great, thank you for your patience. I've got two screens here trying to navigate back and forth. Okay, so just to make sure I'm not missing anybody, is there anybody else in any of the jurisdictions? Anybody from Spotsylvania? They were a tentative, so I do not want to overlook you if you're here. All right. Well, great. So the first thing that I'll launch into, and I'll have Caroline County go first, is talking about the pace of development over the last few years. I love to, at the end of the year, reach out to Jeff and Chuck and folks everywhere and say, hey, what were your occupancy permits like last year, to see, how much new housing are we talking about? So Caroline, I'll set it over to you, Kevin. What did you see in 2020? I know that this is certainly not a typical year last year, but what did you see in 2020 versus 2019?
Well, beginning of the year, I started to see it pick up, and it just went nuts. I'm up to 215 single-family dwelling building permits since 1 July, which is extremely high for this jurisdiction. We don't do many apartments. Actually, we have very few, and at this point, I have no townhouses going on. These are all single-family dwellings. I have a subdivision called Maury Heights, south of town, that was pretty much dead. We had built a few houses in there. And then I had a subdivision that was approved south of town with 250 houses called Brookwood, which got approved and never took off. And now I have over 55 houses in Brookwood, and D.R. Horton has come in, and they have over 20 under construction down there in Maury Heights. Pendleton, Richmond America got a section of 57 back in the spring, and it's built out, sold out, gone. Ryan got a section over there, and they're looking to open another one. D.R. Horton got in over at Ladysmith Village in South River. There's in excess of 20-25 over there. I've got a 55 and older development on Direct Road they're putting water and sewer laterals in and they're getting ready to kick off. And then all my existing subdivisions, the lesser lots that are septic, they're starting to come in with the really advanced alternatives. But yeah, it's crazy. And we have 4 months left.
Yeah, we just had a comment from Lynn Lenahan that said it's crazier than it's ever been in Caroline. So what are we running in terms of permits? How long is it taking? Sometimes we hear concerns that, it can take a long time to get a permit. Certainly not hearing that from Caroline now, but just curious about, obviously the big increase in workload isn't necessarily matched with a big increase in staff for you.
No, not necessarily. And from the time of submittal to you get your permit, depending if it's a fast track or if it's something we have to review, you're anywhere from 14 to 21 business days.
And that's tracking pretty typical to what you usually see.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So I'll ask the same question of the city. I know that there always seems to be something going on in the city. It's so exciting to drive downtown and see some of these projects just seemingly appear overnight if you haven't driven by the lofts or something on Frederick Street. So please tell us what's going on.
Sure. 2020 was not a quiet year for us. We had 78 single-family duplex units with COs and another 164 commercial units that included multifamily. And then 2019, we had fewer. So from a residential standpoint, and almost the same from a commercial standpoint. So we never saw a slack and continue not to see a slack. Right now, projects underway. Up by the baseball stadium, there's Silver Collection Apartments, which are basically finished now, and then the second element of the Jubilation senior housing. Together, there's almost 580 units there. So those are the market rate component is done. The senior housing is getting close to being done. The other big project is down off of Blue Gray Parkway off Lafayette, south side of the city. 80 single-family homes to be built there, Telegraph Hill. About 30 of those houses are under construction or completed. As soon as they finish the roundabout construction, if you drive down Lafayette now, you're sort of taking your life in your own hands because the roundabout is literally under construction. So obey all signs and drive very slowly. Once it's done in a few weeks, things will be much improved. It'll be a full 4-lane road to the top of the hill. So things will be much better there. And you'll see, if you drive by there, you'll see that first of the 207 townhouses are under construction. On the other side of Blue Gray Parkway on Lafayette, closer into downtown, you'll see the Highlander Townhouse project that is breaking ground. They've been digging up a lot of old tires out there, safely disposing of them. But yeah, there's about 95 townhouse units there. Closer into downtown, yes, there is the lofts at Frederick Street, which is new construction, a 4-story building. First floor is parking, 17 units there, and there'll be another 4 townhouses right on Charles Street. The old Janie Marshall Warehouse building is under renovation right now for 12 units. There's a small white cinder block building across from the lofts that we've got a proposal in for probably 4 units there. We got Riverview Townhouses on Sophia. It'd be a total of 13 units. The first half of that is well under construction. You can see all the 4 stories of them. Up at the other end of downtown, near the Liberty Square project, on the backside of that along Amelia Street, there's 30 units there under construction. Immediately west of that, at Amelia and Washington, is another 50 apartment units called Williams Square. as a part of the Williams Square project. That Williams Square project will also include a hotel and a third TBD building, probably offices, but we're not sure. They haven't quite decided that yet. Back on Sophia at Hanover, there's another 24 units on a vacant lot now that are going through the entitlement process. So there is a lot of activity.
Chuck, can you tell us if you know what the status is of the Dominion public market space? I drive by there a lot and just have been curious of what's going on with that project.
Now, a member of that development team is also on our planning commission, and almost every time we have a PC meeting, I say, so Chris, what's happening there? And I think they're still figuring it out. So
Okay.
TBD.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I'm just going to ask the city because it's just on my mind thinking about that project. What about commercial space? Are you seeing applications for commercial development? I know we have a lot of residential stuff going around. Liberty Place was sort of a mix to start with, but it's all commercial now, right?
Well, yeah, Liberty Place is finishing up. So that's the Mellow Mushroom Pizza and the Bluebell Ice Cream place should be opening in the next month or so. And then, as I said, William Square, just to the west of that, William and Washington is well under site plan review process and building permit process, hopefully shortly. We do have the Royal Farms is under construction on Route 3. We have another Royal Farms proposed at Lafayette and Blue Gray, going through a lengthy discussion process there.
Yeah, can you tell us where exactly that's going to be? So if I'm, like I think about, I run the VCR trail all the time. Where is that spot going to be?
It's right on the VCR trail. Right there, Allen Spring Road has just been relocated last week to a few hundred feet uphill a little bit away from Blue Gray Parkway, and there's a giant pile of dirt right there between Allen Springs and Blue Gray Parkway. That's about where the Royal Farms building would go. So it's on a parcel less than 2 acres right there. So excellent visibility from Blue Gray Parkway and Lafayette, but it's going to be right next to townhouses. So that it's on that fault line of very intense and not so intense. And so that's part of the issue. And then the VCR trail is immediately adjacent to it. And that's been an issue of how the driveway will affect the trail. And so we've got a literal workaround designed for that. So we've got a chicken place. Pier 1 is about to set sail, and Raising Cane Chicken Fingers is to go where Pier 1 is on Route 3, just west of the primary urgent care facility. Everybody I talk to about it who comes from someplace south of Fredericksburg, all go, "You're getting a Raising Cane?" I mean, they act like, it's manna from heaven. Anyway, so I have high expectations there.
What about
we've been contacted again by the folks that run the Funland. Before COVID, they were planning on putting up a 175-foot tower with a zip line, and people were going to fly over the place, and then that stopped. But now they've contacted us again, so there's some interest for activity there. There's been some Wegmans. There were some existing buildings, storefronts next to Wegmans that have been finished out. There is some commercial activity.
One last parcel I wanted to ask about, Route 1, right across from Cowan, the empty spot between sort of Cowan and William Street.
Right, where the mobile home park was, yes. We've just received, the site plan's been submitted on that. Cowan Station, I think they're calling it. It's a series of single level office buildings by the Gerald family.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you for that. I'll give you a rest, Chuck, and I'll turn it over to Lewis to tell us what's going on in King George.
Hi, so we've had in 2020 170 new single family dwellings, and that's compared to last year or 2019, which was 167. So just pretty steady there. Similar to Caroline, we don't have a whole lot of apartments or townhouses. It's mostly been single family development. And we have received some applications for new sections in Hop Yard. Hop Yard section 9, 11, and 13. Those have plans under review right now. Also, Oakwood Estates section 4 has come in. That's going to be 59 of the 180 single family residential lots in Oakwood Estates. And also right on Eden View Drive, sort of just a little before Oakwood Estates, we've gotten a subdivision approved, Eden View, for, I believe it's 33 single family dwellings.
So any plans, Louis, for more multifamily, maybe in sort of the mixed use development area? Are there any thoughts about that? I know some of our agents sometimes express some desire to see more affordable options, and the large single family homes aren't always in price ranges, but people want to live in King George because they work at Dahlgren and it's an easy commute.
Sorry, nothing has been submitted. No, we haven't gotten any sort of applications for multifamily. The last one was the Crossroads, the King George, or Villages at King George Crossroads, which did not get approved by the board.
Do you sense that the board is open to some of that multifamily in some of those prescribed areas, like a sort of downtownish kind of King George feel? I know that mixed use development zoning category or scheme has been out there for a little while, but largely during the pandemic year. And I know it's an odd time, but that seems like an interesting opportunity for King George.
I don't want to necessarily speak for the Board of Supervisors, but I think the right project at the right location, they would certainly be open to something mixed use or apartment, something just like what you just said.
Any notable commercial development?
There hasn't been too much commercial development right now. It's mostly just been those big single family houses.
All right. Thank you, Louis. I'll give you a break and kick it over to Stafford. So Jeff or anybody else who is on from Stafford.
Kim, looking at 2020 to 2019, we actually slowed down a little bit as far as housing goes, and I'll let Carrie elaborate on what trends she's seeing. But in 2019, we approved 1,002 occupancy permits, and then in 2020 is 888. I guess, Carrie, from what I was understanding from Sarah, we're probably on track for matching last year.
Yes. I'm trying to find where I am because I don't have a picture. Picture of me. I mean, I'm trying to find, where am I? Anyway, yes, it is on track. We've not seen any slowdown from the ones that I got. We did 1,006 OPs in 2019, fell a little bit in 2020 fiscal year to 944, and right now we're about 100 more compared to last year at this time. So we're seeing an uptick on it. So yeah, we've not slowed down really.
And I guess just one thing I'll ask real quickly while we're talking about permits, have you seen those trends pretty much steadily increasing over the years? You know, I think I started really looking at this pretty hard every year, starting in about 13 or 14. Are we seeing steady increase, or does it kind of have ebbs and flows depending on the year?
Well, in our comprehensive plan, we have growth projections, and currently it's projected to grow on average of 1,000 units a year through 2036. We've been tracking it since 2017, and we're pretty well on pace with what we projected, because we've double checked that against population estimates from Weldon Cooper. And some years are higher, some years are lower. I don't know if Carrie, if you could talk about if there's been any spikes or of certain housing types or whatnot.
Trying to unmute me. Yes, there was couple years back, there was a lot of several, I would say, well, yeah, several apartment complexes, and I think Jeff can comment on this. There is more apartments coming online, I think this year, but from just being finalized out a couple of years ago in apartments, we have not had any new projects, but I think some are coming up. Most of it is single family and townhouses, about equally what we have going on typically.
Yeah, so some of the projects we have going on of note, we've got 3 single family detached projects in the center part of the county. They're using transfer of development rights, and they should be under construction this spring. They comprise 337 lots. We've got an area down South Stafford, the Gerald's building off of Forbes Street, and they have 59 lots, and projects are calling Reserve and the estates at Clearview. We continue to see development and build out of the Liberty Hall tract off of Truslow Road. They're in for their second section with 49 more lots. They have a total of 95 in that neighborhood. If I remember right, Drees Homes is building in there. We've got Winding Creek in North Stafford, 97 single family detached homes, which is under construction. Quantico Village will be starting soon up in Boswell's Corner area with 80 townhomes. We've got 71 townhomes being built as a new project in South Stafford near the Route 17 interchange. And then as Carrie mentioned about some apartments, we have 141 apartments at Old Potomac Church Road near the Germana campus and Aberley Apartments. And that's a TDR project as well. As far as other activity we've got going on is from a commercial standpoint, a lot of activity at the new interchange there at Courthouse Road. We've got a project that you can see the grading activity going on now on the east side of the interstate. It's known as Burns Corner. It's going to have several commercial uses, a gas station, several restaurants, a hotel, and retail strip shopping centers. Embry Mill is moving forward with their commercial aspect of their project. They've got 90 acres of commercial area, and currently they've situated themselves where they've cleared the area, installed the utilities, and also a parallel access road to Courthouse Road, and gotten recent zoning approvals for up to 7 restaurants and drive-throughs. And also too, the county's been working with the state, and we were fortunate enough to land DHL, which will come in at the end of Weiss Road. That's a 500,000 square feet warehouse distribution center. That project is anticipated to employ almost 600 people. So we see a lot of activity that's going to generate more employment in the county and also for the region, which may also attract more people to our region. In the Centerport area, we've got a project that you can see from I-95. It's not quite complete yet, but it's a almost 500,000 square foot warehouse distribution building. We also had plan approvals and construction has started for a project called DVA3. That's a 200,000 square foot warehouse distribution center. We've been working with the Peterson companies on several hundred acres that they own. They've got grading plans in, and they're hoping to build pad-ready sites to attract more warehouse distribution centers. Their zoning approval has somewhat of a campus for warehouse distribution centers. And then the regional airport's in the process of working on their runway expansion. They've gotten the FAA and county approvals for their plans, so they're moving forward for getting a contractor on board and constructing that runway extension. Other projects we have kind of in the winds, are sort of wild cards, are the Garrison up on Garrisonville Road. That has 453 apartments with almost 500,000 square feet of retail and offices. That got kind of slowed up with the the economy and also with COVID, but they're now back with the Board of Supervisors to do an adjustment to their first mixed-use building where they would have ground floor retail and apartments above. And then Westlake, they've had plan approvals for quite some time. Their big thing is asking for an additional 120 units. So if that's approved, they have 820 units with that project.
All right. I think I have a question. I'm going to call on Randy Walther, who said he had a question for you, Jeff. Randy, you out there? Oh, Randy, you're still muted. There you go. Nope, actually, Randy, there you don't go. I can see your lips moving, but I do not hear anything. So Randy, why don't you pop it in the chat and I'll ask it for you. And Doris, did you have your hand up? Do you have a question? Go ahead and unmute Doris and we'll get you in there and then I'll get you next, Randy.
Okay. Jeff, can you tell me what's going on with the, I believe it's 46 acres. It's off of Rocky Run Road. I see that they, it appears Bowman's been out there. Looks like they're marking off lots or streets or something. It's in South Stafford.
Yeah, we've got a number of residential developments that had prior approvals down in that direction. So it's probably going to be a 3-acre lot subdivision.
Okay. Thank you.
Oops, I was muted there too. Sorry. One more call for questions. While we're waiting for Randy to Clay. Go ahead.
I've got a bunch of questions, but I'm going to try to keep, I'm going to ask them all. But as we see the counties really push towards a much denser, suburban area and anti-sprawl and understanding that it seems as though the counties and their solution for housing is apartments. And these are not cheap apartments. These are $1,400 to $1,800 a month for apartments. And that seems to be a starting point for people, young professionals and stuff. And, up north, these solutions have always been maybe some condos where all of us on this call, on the realtor side, we really want to see home ownership, whether that's a $150,000 home or a $250,000 home or $1 million home. We want to see somebody own it. We don't want to really, ideally you build that kind of wealth. And so what, in your experience with all these apartments coming in and just popping up everywhere, what's the missing link to have those be condos units where somebody could buy it, own it, and then sell it, to then purchase their expensive first home as prices continue to rise?
I think the key is the developer and how they want to build their project. From a planning and zoning standpoint, there's no difference between a condo and apartment. It's an ownership issue. So it's how the developer wants to run their project. Most of the developers we've been dealing with are larger companies that have apartment complexes in other parts of the Commonwealth. And that's mainly their business, is building apartments and leasing them and holding them on as assets.
I'll jump in and just make observations of things I've seen and read. Is that this is reflecting sort of a larger national trend of folks moving away from ownership, of wanting to have the flexibility to just rent, and not wanting to have the responsibility of maintaining. They just call up the landlord and says, my roof's leaking, or whatever it is. That there is larger demographic shifts also occurring. I totally get what you're saying about building wealth, and that's an important element. I think the other piece of it is accessory dwelling units. For folks who are truly at the entry level end of it, and we in the city have been tussling with the whole issue of accessory dwelling units and how and to what extent to permit them. And I suspect we'll be continuing that conversation through this year. But there is a sense that historically has been a way to provide housing for entry-level households. Typical Euclidean zoning separates that all out, but we're going away from that, I think, and so that will be discussed. There's been a lot of discussion on a regional basis about about dealing with the issue of affordable housing. It's a real concern that's been expressed at the General Assembly, and I'm expecting that next year's session, of course, depending on the election, et cetera, but next year's session may devote more time to that. We may be seeing a little bit more direction, mandates, anyway, from the General Assembly, pushing localities to deal with these issues better.
Yeah, I think as far as like the maintenance, aspect of a apartment, and you call a landlord, I mean, you do a condo association and you do a, HOA, and a lot of those things can be nearly maintenance free. I mean, I guess it is the developer wanting to, maintain that investment as opposed to, producing, ownable units from the public.
We've also experienced, when we've had, sorry to interrupt, we've also had situations where developers have said, I need to, for my bank is telling me I need to keep a rental income for 5 years. After 5 years is up, then I'm going to go through the conversion process. Now, I haven't seen them actually do that, but that's the story that they tell us.
That's what the Janney building's doing, right?
I believe so.
So Jeff, I'm just going to plug Randy's question because I think it's a quick one. And then Shay, I'll get to you next. Randy wants to know, what's the update on the subdivision between Clearview Heights and Harrell Road?
That's the one I was referring to earlier, the Gerald project. They've gotten all the county approvals, so they should be moving forward with that project.
All right, Randy, if you have any follow-up, just pop it in the chat and I'll follow up. Shay, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Yes, I have a question. Is anybody on here from Spotsylvania?
No, unfortunately.
No, I mean like the building people. No?
Unfortunately
Okay,
not.
so I'm just going to say what I have to say then, because I'd say it to them. So I have a huge issue with all the apartments, and y'all know who are on the Public Policy Committee that I've been on a banter for the last few years because the Board of Supervisors ultimately approved over 7,000 apartments. That's ridiculous. And like Clay already mentioned, Clay, $1,400? No, they are way more than $1,400. Most of them are starting at least $1,600. And so there are, even though there might be something nationally saying that people are going away from wanting to buy, a lot of these are younger people. And even now, I had a young lady who wanted to sell her house because this is the time. And then she was going to go and invest $1,700 into an apartment. And I finally told her that actually didn't make sense because by next year, Lord knows what a house would cost. So she decided not to sell her house right now. But we have clients, we have, young clients, we have first-time home buyers who are looking for homes to buy. And instead, there's nothing affordable for them to buy, just like you just mentioned, Chuck. There's nothing affordable for them to buy, and they don't want to rent. They want to buy homes. So Spotsylvania, I've just been on this thing with Spotsylvania because I just feel that, they kind of like decided, oh yeah, let's put 7,000 apartments everywhere around Spotsylvania and people are eventually moving to them. And we need more than that. We need them to do some affordable housing initiatives.
So I love the questions, keep them coming, but I think this is a good segue to talk about, the name of this was Building a Bright Future. So where do we go from here? So I'd love to hear from the jurisdictions. When are you going to update your comprehensive plan next? Because I know that does not happen on an incredibly regular basis. And what are the mechanisms? How do agents like ours get involved in that kind of conversation? I know, to Shay's point, many years ago when Spotsylvania did theirs, I went to not just a planning commission meeting, but I went to like a charrette arranged by the county. And we went up with little sticky notes and like put, where we thought dense development should be not. So it was an interesting, very engaging way for the public to participate, and not as maybe intimidating as going to a board of supervisor or a city council meeting. So Kevin, can I start with you? When is Caroline looking to update their comprehensive plan?
Yes, ma'am. I got with Mike Fincham, the Director of Planning and Community Development, and he says they're in the process now in the planning department, and it should be completed by the end of the year.
So the planning department, they'll eventually, though, that will go to some public hearings, right?
Yes,
where there'll be
ma'am.
the opportunity for folks to, Okay, and will that just be like a planning commission meeting, or will there be some sort of larger community outreach? How does that work?
Normally in Caroline, it'll go to the planning commission, and of course it never passes the first round. And at that first planning commission meeting, then they'll schedule work sessions, and that'll be advertised to the general public can attend and bring their thoughts. And normally they have 2 or 3 work sessions. Before then, they'll take it up and then pass it on to the Board of Supervisors.
Okay, so this year, so we'll make sure that we put that information out there for folks who are interested in attending and going to following at least what Caroline's doing.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Stafford, I'm going to pick on you next because I know we've had a lot of discussions about the comprehensive plan at the Board of Supervisors, and the update will come soon.
Yes, the process started in January where the board tasked the Plan Commission to move forward. The timeline is that the goal will be to have it to the Board of Supervisors for potential adoption in September. This is more so a adjustment update. It's not really a major overhaul. Right now, the Planning Commission's got a subcommittee that they formed, and they're meeting every 2 weeks on a regular basis to work through the comp plan changes. And all their meetings are open to the public, and they're also available when we send out the meeting announcement with the link to watch the meeting via WebEx. We're also going to be standing up a web page where people can submit comments and see the progress that's being made with regards to the comp plan update. And then still trying to work out the details, but there will likely be some public meetings in advance of the public hearing to solicit more input. And Kim, if your organization wants to have a session with the subcommittee, let me know. I know that they are trying to work something out with the Builders Association right now.
Okay, thank you for that invitation. Yeah, that's great. So just curious, in a given year when you're doing this, I mean, do you get significant public input? Or I know sometimes you see those public notices in the newspaper and they're like the entire page. It's, they're intimidating to read in their entirety.
Yeah. Normally for a comprehensive plan update, we don't get much citizen involvement because it's not directly affecting them or it's not in their backyard. So a lot of times people shy away from the broad policy issues.
Okay, thank you. Lewis, when is King George set to update their plan? Or did they just do it? Did we just miss our opportunity?
We just did it. So it just got adopted at the end of 2019. It was sort of a long process to stay with the Planning Commission for a long time, a lot of work sessions, and then also had a work session at the board level before it was approved after the public hearings at both boards. The biggest citizen involvement came through a survey, which we did get a very good turnout from that. I believe it was a mail-in survey.
And what's the time frame? Like, how long do you usually go between these kind of updates?
This one took, I believe, about 2 years, but that's a little on the long side.
So how long will it be till you do it again? Just how long are these documents live for?
We are obligated by the state to do it every 5 years.
And it doesn't have to be a huge involved. It can just be a review at the 5-year point.
Mm-hmm. But we mostly try to do it big and get citizen involvement. Go that way each time we update.
All right. Thank you, Lewis. All right. Chuck and Marnie, what about the city's planning process?
Last comprehensive revision update was in 2015. Part of that update included the creation of the concept of small area plans. The city was divided into 10 small area planning precincts, if you will. We've finished small area plans for about half of those so far. We finished the downtown plan last summer. We are now working on the what we call Area 1, the Central Park Celebrate area, West 95. We just finished up Tuesday night the Fall Hill area along Fall Hill Avenue east of 95. So we are, in a sense, updating our comprehensive plan incrementally by looking at each of these areas. The observation is absolutely right. citizens find it hard to attach on to big picture policies, but when you start talking about their neighborhoods and more specific, we get a better interaction. We had a charrette for downtown. We had a charrette for Area 1, which is in the plan development stage right now. We've sent a draft out to the Planning Commission for a work session later this month. So our comprehensive planning process is ongoing and never ending. I mean, that's our perspective, that it's not, traditionally it had been, every 5 years, oh, well, we did it, move on. We're going away from that. We are scheduled, just for budgetary reasons, not to really kind of look at the sort of the big policy pictures until FY23. But we're really looking at that effort to going away from the 200-page static document to shorter, interactive, something that's more approachable and understandable, maybe with appendices for all the data stuff, but something that is more comprehensible in addition to being comprehensive.
Well, I personally live in a city, and kudos to you all. I thought that it was so well done, the small area plans. I live in Idlewild, and there was one at our community center, at our right there. It was very easy. And then I work in Central Park, and you did like an empty storefront. You just walked in, and it was a very cool process. And there's only one other person there when I was there, but it was very engaging, and it was a cool experience to do. So
glad to hear that.
Yes, yay for the city. So I'd love to see that, maybe a little bit more at some points in the other areas, because I know it is intimidating for folks to maybe get involved. And certainly we put those links out there when there are planning commission meetings, when they do look at some of these things. But I know it's not enough to just put it on a Facebook page, because how many people actually see that and then can internalize it and do it. We need to do a better job of sharing that information. So you'll certainly be hearing from me, counties and city, to make sure that we get that kind of information out to our members. So I'm going to open that up for questions now before I move on to, my endless list of questions. Other folks. I don't want to. Clay, go ahead.
Yeah, I've just got another question. This might be more city focused, but anybody obviously give us your input. We're still in a pandemic. People are still working from home. Some of the bigger operations are still planning to. I think we're going to see a drastic change in office space. And I'm just wondering if the cities, I remember when Liberty Place was being, they were advertising it back in like 2016. There's no Class A office space. We don't have it. And so that was the reason we needed to have it. Now we've cleared out a mobile home park. We've got space going over there. We've got, now I think we have ample office space if I'm seeing all the commercial signs. I'm just wondering if there's a proactive mindset with the city to maybe make some of these areas that are now zoned commercial into maybe a mixed use, or industrial into a mixed use, where there could be a better use of the the land. How big of a lift would that be? But don't you think it would be beneficial to have some creativity given what I think is a new normal on office space and the need for it?
Absolutely. Office could be an antiquated 20th century concept. We'll have to sort of see how this all plays out. Whenever we start predicting the future, things are going to be radically different. Well, they end up not being quite the way we thought they will be, but it will change, no doubt about it. When we updated our last major update to our zoning ordinance in 2013, we added residential to commercial zoning throughout the city. So at some level, we have incorporated the concept of multiple uses, mixed uses throughout the city, expressed at different levels and different levels of intensity, certainly. And the Valley Run Townhouse project that I think I mentioned, maybe I didn't mention, on Route 1 South, is actually zoned highway commercial, but it is a town, but we do allow townhouses within our commercial zoning district. So yes, I think the transportation challenges that we have been because people have to get in their car to go to work, to go to shop, to go to recreate. That walkability and integrated uses had been very difficult to achieve. And we in the city have thrown that out the window and are actively encouraging multiple use, mixed use. We're even taking a step further in our creative maker district on the now North Princess Anne corridor, where we're even including light manufacturing uses. So as to spread the diversity of uses. The intensity is not increasing. We're not increasing the height or the FAR so much as we're increasing the horizontal scale of uses. And so we are getting uses like breweries. We're getting uses like small scale food processing to help reuse and reinvigorate this older commercial corridor into something where people can live and shop and work. And that's the mantra.
So I want to piggyback off that and ask Kevin from Caroline, if I'm not mistaken, and we track these numbers pretty closely, Caroline's had some pretty significant growth over the years and before the pandemic, and largely driven by affordability. So for you all, when you're looking ahead at something like, Carmel Church, or are you all sort of preparing for big things in the county, or expecting it to keep more of that rural character? Certainly it's a pretty rural county, but I'm just thinking about when I'm looking at those numbers, it's been sustained growth in Caroline for a while now. Certainly a little bit of acceleration because of the pandemic, because that is where the affordability is.
Yeah, I think it's affordability. And to answer your question, yes, we just passed last week in the Board of Supervisors meeting a major wastewater upgrade over in the Ladysmith area. And that's where we're really trying to keep the growth. That's our growth area. The town here, like I mentioned, with the two subdivisions south of town, and then the rest of it's pretty rural. But doing inspections and talking to these folks, I got to be honest with you, what I get from them is they're coming here from the cities, the pandemic, the lockdown, and then these protests. They're tired of that, and people are coming even to the rural area, the bigger lots, the 10, 20, and 30 acre lots. I have more homes going up out there, and people are tired of that. I got to be honest with you, in Caroline, you see a mask here and there, and I mean, people try to follow that in the social distancing. But if you really turned off the news and you just operated throughout the county, you may get a feel something's going on, but I don't think it was to the level that the media hyped it up to. And Caroline's just a great place to live.
Shay, I see a hand raised. Oh, you're muted.
Yes. I'm from Caroline, and I don't know if I totally agree with everything that you just said, but I will. One of the questions that I think I have for you is, so it looks like the growth is primarily Ladysmith, Carmel Church along the 95 corridor. And I know just this past year, since the pandemic, and because real estate is really crazy and nothing is affordable in Spotsylvania, that I literally have sold some houses down in Caroline this year too, and mainly because of the affordability aspect and the access to 95. So are you saying, other than the communities that are south of town, of Bowling Green, that you expect the real estate part to stay along that corridor? And then my other question is, I know that there were some bigger plans for like a Walmart and things like that down in Caroline. And do you all have any thought about, since more growth is coming to that area, of maybe building some stores, some anchor stores that can support the people that are moving there?
Yes, ma'am. We actually had a Walmart on 639 and Ladysmith Road from the I-95 interchange going west through Route 1, but Walmart pulled out, and it's dead on the vine. They're not coming back. Of course, everybody's shopping online, and you have a Walmart 17 miles south in Ashland, and you have a Walmart 17 miles north. I really never saw that bearing fruit, but we're still going through with the $27 million expansion from Route 1 over there to 639. You're asking me, do I see the growth? Yeah, that's where we've designated the growth. Now we have Belmont North down there in Carmel Church. that's going before the Board of Supervisors. That fell into foreclosure and the bank took it back and then a new gentleman bought it. And there's talk of single family dwellings and townhouses there, but the subdivision of Belmont's built out right now at this point. So the only real developments are Pendleton and Ladysmith Village and South River over there. And then the lots I spoke of earlier for Lake Caroline and Lake Landor. But we're really getting to the bad soil lots there. And those are the ones that I told you are taking these high-tech alternative systems, which really drive up the price of the lot in the home. But elsewhere, the Northern Carolina out to the east, those are minimum 10-acre lots. There's no subdivision plans submitted, no rezonings submitted, and that's our rural area, and that's the intent to keep that right now.
I know we're getting close to 2 o'clock and I want to be respectful of everybody's time. We did get a great question and it's one we could probably talk about for another hour, but this will be our closing thought is, Mary says, with all the new building in the area, do we expect to see an expansion on school development as well? So I know school capacity is, certainly a concern for existing residents, and schools, have so much to do with people's desire to move to certain areas to be in different school districts. I know that's an incredibly important thing for real estate. So I'll throw that out to, let's see, I'll pick on Jeff first. What's in terms of like the long-term plans for school development? How does that play into what we're talking about?
Yeah, our school division has submitted their 10-year CIP to the county. Right now, we've got a high school and an elementary school. They're also looking at a possible middle school and another elementary school on top of that. So school capacity is a significant concern, especially at the high school level. With the pandemic, when it hit, we actually saw enrollment continue to climb in the high schools, but not so much in the elementary school level. And we'll just have to see if that changes once everyone's back to normal. But yeah, and the big cost issue, well, the big issue is the cost, because the high school is estimated to be somewhere between 125 and 150 million dollars. So that just like blows up your capital budget for building anything else.
All right, so I'll kick it over to the city. I know there's not a lot of land left in the city, so what?
Well, there are options that are being considered, and it was a great debate before COVID set in, and I think it's still simmering out there. The conflicting components are either just straight out new capacity or smarter use of the space that we already have. And we'll probably end up with a blending of that. The school board's talking about some augments to our high school, but I think there are ways of dealing with the capacity issues through better utilization of the space that we have, utilization of existing structures for different purposes. So it's an ongoing discussion. So we haven't come to a resolution, but it's acknowledged that it's a significant issue. I would add in so much. It's been the perception that, well, residential is fiscally bad because it generates school kids. But the trend is, with so much shopping from home, that in fact residences are sales points, that they've become little commercial sites spread throughout your city. And so a house, because you don't go to the bricks and mortar to shop, but shop in your own house, that sales tax revenue is coming out of your house. So having residences being strictly seen as negative from a fiscal standpoint, I think that whole concept is going to evolve and change in ways we're just beginning to understand. And we're seeing this, the basic research that we have done throughout all the jurisdictions in the area. So what's happening is Fredericksburg residents aren't going to Spotsy to shop. They're shopping out of their homes, and Spotsy residents aren't going to the city to shop. They're shopping out of their homes. And so the revenue is truly staying more within the jurisdiction. How that all balances out is TBD, as I keep saying. So just an observation.
And no doubt this is an emotionally charged issue. I know, again, I live in the city, and those discussions were challenging, thinking about moving grades and, your kids would go to a different school. Those are hard. I'm sure those discussions are echoed across the jurisdiction. So, Louis, I'll ask you about school construction.
Sure. So most of the considerations for schools right now is upgrading the existing facilities, such as replacing the roof of the middle school that's been on the CIP for a few years now, as well as the middle school expansion, which is currently under construction.
All right, and Kevin, you too. We had a couple comments about how there's only one high school and one middle school in Caroline. Any talk of expanding or building anything new?
No, ma'am. And actually, we've lost 80 students. So we're not near capacity, nor is there anything on the table. And with all this building going on, we're going to have to wait and see. But at the last joint work session, we were down 80 students.
Yeah, okay, Shay, go ahead.
Kim, I just want to ask you if you have heard, since Spotsylvania isn't present, but in 2019 and 18, we were talking about all these apartments. We were talking about schools, and in their comprehensive plan at that time, for 2023, they had it earmarked for a new high school. Do you know if that's still in their plan?
I have no idea. That's a good question. I think so many of those things that are in there, though, are subject to approval when they get closer with enrollments and funds available. And I will just ask just one final question because I'm curious. I mean, there's been a lot of stuff in the paper about, parents delaying kindergarten, so much smaller kindergarten class. I mean, how much certainty do you all have in predictions for next year and then the year after? I know just in my little neighborhood group of families, there's obviously a lot of concern that next year isn't going to be normal, and how that will play into parents' decisions, whether to homeschool or find another alternative. It's got to be incredibly hard from a planning perspective. Have the jurisdictions lost some significant enrollment? That might make its way back, of course, when things are different, but.
Ask us at 6 months. I think we're too close to it.
Okay.
I know one thing that I've been talking about, we've been looking at our regulations regarding people conducting small scale schools out of their homes and trying to loosen that up so that people have a little bit more flexibility to do that.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's huge, because I know as a mom with 2 small children, figuring out where your kids are going to go during the day is not an easy task. How about any of the other jurisdictions, Stafford, King George? Have you all saw declines in enrollment, or not that you would necessarily have this info at your fingertips, but for being planners and being people who love to plan, this year has had to be like the worst for your nerves because there is no planning right now. All right,
Yeah.
Jeff, you can say something?
Yeah, and talking to our school board staff that does all the projections and all, they did see decline in enrollment in elementary and slightly in middle, but their projections are that it's going to rebound. So they're not seeing this as a permanent issue. Plus, we have the normal population growth occurring too. So that's why we're still planning for needing more school capacity. Yeah.
Well, and we've got some wonderful teachers in our school systems. We have had a great experience. I think people will come back once we're open and ready to welcome kids back in a full day. I think a lot of those people will return. So, all right, on that note, thank you all so much. This is a great, robust discussion. I appreciate it. If anybody has any other questions for the jurisdictions, please email me and I'll make sure we get you some answers. But otherwise, I hope you all get outside and enjoy the rest of the day.